Mountaineers have conquered almost every high peak on Earth, but some of the world's tallest mountains remain summits that no one has ever reached. Not because they are unclimbable, but because human limits stop the ascent. Here, laws, faith, and politics have done what avalanches and altitude could not. Why are these giants still untouched, and what are the consequences for those who dare approach them? Today's climbers have access to tools that their predecessors could only imagine. GPS units pinpoint location to within meters, while satellite weather forecasts help teams avoid deadly storms. Lightweight synthetic clothing and high-efficiency stoves make life at altitude more bearable, and supplemental oxygen allows climbers to push higher and recover faster. These advances have fueled a wave of ascents across the Himalayas and beyond. Since the 1950s, more than 100 peaks above 7,000 meters have been climbed, many of them multiple times. Even Everest, once the ultimate challenge, now sees over 1,000 summits each year. Yet, despite all this progress, a small group of mountains remains untouched. Fewer than 10 major peaks above 7,000 meters are still unclimbed. Their names rarely appear in headlines, but they stand out on every serious mountaineer's map, not because they are out of reach, but because something else keeps people away. In an age when technology can overcome almost any obstacle, these blank summits raise a new set of questions. What are the boundaries that endure when gear and skill are no longer the deciding factors? The answer lies not in the rock or ice, but in the choices that people make about where they are allowed to go, and where they are not. Mount Kailash rises 6,638 meters above the Tibetan Plateau. Its summit is untouched not by lack of skill or technology, but by a profound sense of reverence. To millions, the mountain is more than stone and ice. Hindu tradition regards Kailash as the home of Shiva. In Buddhism, it is the axis of the world, a place where the Buddha is said to have manifested. Jain pilgrims believe it to be the site where their first spiritual leader attained liberation, while Bon practitioners see it as the seat of their founder. These beliefs converge on a single act. Pilgrims perform a pilgrimage of 52 kilometers around the base, known as the Kora. Each year, thousands of devotees complete this circuit, some prostrating themselves with every step, circling the mountain rather than seeking its summit. Climbing Kailash is considered a violation of its sanctity. The idea of standing atop the peak is unthinkable for many, a disruption of spiritual order. Chinese authorities have never issued a climbing permit for Kailash. Even requests from world-renowned mountaineers drawn by the mountain's fame have been quietly refused. There is no record of any summit attempt, no photograph from the top, no trace of a human footprint on the upper slopes. In a region where so many mountains have yielded to human ambition, Kailash remains a place where belief takes precedence over conquest. Its unclimbed status is not a failure of courage or technology, but a deliberate choice that preserves its mystery for generations. In 1957, a British expedition led by Jimmy Roberts approached the sharp summit of Machapuchari, a 6,993-meter peak in Nepal's Annapurna region. The mountain's twin spires rise above the valley, their silhouette familiar to trekkers and villagers alike. For the Gurung people, Machapuchari is the sacred home of the god Shiva. Before the climb began, Roberts and his team made a promise to local elders and Nepalese officials that they would not set foot on the summit. After days of effort, the climbers reached a narrow ridge just 50 to 150 meters below the top. The final stretch was within reach. The snow and ice were no more daunting than what they had already faced. Yet, in that exposed, windswept place, Roberts kept his word. The team turned back, leaving the summit untouched. Their decision was not forced by the elements or by law, but by a deliberate act of respect for beliefs that saw the mountain as inviolable. This moment stands as a rare example of restraint in an age defined by conquest, and would soon shape the mountain's future in ways no one on that ridge could have predicted. After the British climbers turned back short of Machapuchari's summit, the Nepalese government took formal action. By the early 1960s, all climbing on Machapuchari was declared a permanent ban. No permits have been issued since. This prohibition stands out in a country where mountaineering is both a source of national pride and a major draw for visitors. The mountain's striking profile is visible from the Annapurna Sanctuary, one of the world's most popular trekking routes, yet its summit remains off-limits to all. The ban is not a response to danger or technical challenge, but a legal recognition of the mountain's sacred status for the Gurung people and other local communities. In the decades since, the Nepalese authorities have maintained this stance without exception. Every application to climb Machapuchari is denied, reinforcing the idea that some boundaries are set not by nature, but by collective human choice. The result is a peak that remains untouched, its status protected not by remoteness or difficulty, but by law. Apsarasa Kangri. It rises from the Siachen Glacier at 7,243 meters. Its summit remains untouched not because of reverence or law, but because of the realities of conflict. Since 1984, this stretch of the Eastern Karakoram has been a militarized zone, contested by India and Pakistan. The glacier is home to the highest battlefield on Earth, with outposts perched at over 6,000 meters and supply lines stretching for miles across ice and snow. Civilian access is strictly prohibited, and no climbing permits are issued for any peak in the region. Movement is tightly controlled by military authorities on both sides. There are no public records of any ascent, civilian or military, and no summit photos or expedition reports have surfaced. The only neighboring peak, Apsarasas Kangri 2, was climbed by a Japanese team in 1976, and even that effort left climbers stranded for a week by storms. For Apsarasa Kangri, the barrier is not technical challenge, but the enduring presence of armed conflict and the absolute ban on entry. Here, the mountain remains a blank space on the map, unclimbed, unvisited, and largely unknown outside the world of geopolitics. In central Tibet, Labush Kang 3 stands at 7,250 meters, its summit untouched not by law or conflict, but by sheer isolation. The mountain sits deep within the Changtang Plateau, far from any major settlement or road. Reaching its base requires days of travel across high-altitude terrain, with no established infrastructure to support an expedition. The nearest airstrips and supply points are hundreds of kilometers away, and the journey involves crossing wide valleys, glacial rivers, and endless stretches of barren land. Even for experienced teams, just arriving at the foot of Labush Kang 3 is a formidable challenge. Permits add another layer of difficulty. Climbing in Tibet requires a complex web of approvals from national authorities to regional offices, with each step involving paperwork, fees, and shifting regulations. This bureaucracy has discouraged many would-be climbers before they even set foot in the region. Unlike other unclimbed peaks, there are no records of successful ascents, and only a handful of documented attempts have come close. The mountain's remote location, combined with the practical barriers of access and permits, has left it largely off the radar even among the world's elite mountaineers. Labush Kang 3 remains one of the highest summits on Earth, still awaiting its first human visitor. Gangkhar Puensum rises 7,570 meters along the border of Bhutan and Tibet, holding the distinction as the highest mountain on Earth that remains unclimbed. Its slopes have seen the footprints of only a handful of expeditions, all in the brief window before Bhutan closed its high peaks to climbers. In the 1980s, Japanese and British teams advanced up the mountain's vast snowfields and along its sharp ridges, but none reached the summit. The highest camps were established around 6,880 meters, with each attempt halted by unpredictable weather, route-finding problems, or deep snow. There are no summit photos, no triumphant accounts, only stories of retreat and respect for the unknown. In 1994, Bhutan enacted a sweeping ban on all climbing above 6,000 meters, citing both spiritual beliefs and environmental preservation. Gangkhar Puensum, revered by local communities as the home of protective deities, became permanently off-limits. The ban was expanded in 2003 to cover all mountaineering activity, regardless of altitude. Since then, no permits have been issued, and the mountain summit remains untouched. In a world where technology and ambition have reached nearly every corner, Gangkhar Puensum stands as a deliberate exception, a place preserved by policy, not by inaccessibility or technical challenge. Its unclimbed summit is a choice written into law and respected by all who approach its remote valleys. Today, the highest unclimbed peaks remain off-limits, not for lack of skill, but by deliberate human choice. In a world that values conquest, these mountains remind us that restraint can be as